The transfer portal has been open for about a week now, and we just had the craziest 24 hours of the portal yet. And that's because some of the top names in the portal have announced where they will be committing to next season, and we just had another huge name enter the portal. So in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down all the latest news and notes around the transfer portal, so let's jump into it. And I wanted to start off with one of the biggest names yet to announce that they will be entering the transfer portal, and that's Milan Momcilovic from Iowa State, because he just announced that he will be entering the portal while also going through the NBA draft process. And this is huge because Momcilovic was the best three-point shooter in the entire country last season. He led Division I in both three-point makes and percentage, as he shot nearly 50% from beyond the arc. And right now it seems that Momcilovic's full focus is on the NBA draft, and he's currently projected around the 20 to 40 range depending on where you look. But if he does come back to college basketball, it's going to be somewhere other than Iowa State, because TJ Alterberger and the Cyclones actually just completed their roster with another transfer that they just got. So it looks like Milan Momcilovic will have to find a new home, and one team that's been rumored for Momcilovic is actually the Florida Gators, and that would be huge if the Gators were able to land Momcilovic, because their three-point shooting was the biggest thing that they were missing last season. And if Thomas Houck decides to go to the NBA draft, like I think he will, Momcilovic could be the perfect replacement for him there at the 3 spot for the Gators. But it looks like this one's going to drag out for a while, so we'll just have to wait and see on whether or not Momcilovic comes back to school or stays in the NBA draft. But the biggest news this weekend from the transfer portal has to be the Louisville Cardinals, who had both Flory Bidunga and Jackson Shelstad on campus for a visit, and Pat Kelsey got both of them to commit while they were on a visit to the Louisville Cardinals, which are huge additions for Louisville next season. But starting with Flory Bidunga, he was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year last season with the Kansas Jayhawks, and was probably the best player that was available in the portal, and one of the best transfers that we've seen of all time since the transfer portal began. And this is a huge add for Pat Kelsey and the Louisville Cardinals, because what he brings on the defensive end, which is something that has lacked there at Louisville the past couple of seasons, and I truly think Flory Bidunga is going to shine on that end for the Cardinals. But then you also have Jackson Shelstad, who committed to Louisville as well, and he was one of the top point guards in the portal and should fit the Louisville offensive system extremely well. Last season at Oregon, he averaged 15.5 points per game, 3 rebounds per game, and nearly 5 assists per game, but he only played 12 games due to his season being cut short by an injury. But he's a great playmaker and floor general that's going to be a really good replacement for Michael Brown Jr., who is now off to the NBA draft. And landing both of these guys is going to give Louisville such a high ceiling for next season, but I don't think Pat Kelsey is done just yet, because we got even more major news that Pat Kelsey and Louisville are going to continue to be aggressive in the transfer portal to acquire even more talent on this Louisville roster, because Louisville is also going after John Blackwell from Wisconsin and Paulius Murauskas, and both of these guys are some of the top available players in the portal. For Blackwell, it was reported that he was down to Duke and Illinois, but it just recently came out that he has a scheduled visit with UCLA, and it also seems that Louisville is now in the mix to try and land John Blackwell, which will make a great backcourt there alongside Jackson Shelstad. And then Paulius Murauskas, right now it actually seems that Louisville is the front runner to get the St. Mary's transfer, with his former head coach Randy Bennett and Arizona State there close behind. But if Louisville is able to land at least one or both of Paulius Murauskas and John Blackwell, this team immediately becomes Final Four caliber in my opinion. But another huge commitment that we got was Providence guard Stefan Vaaks has committed to Brad Underwood and Illinois, and this is going to be huge for the Fighting Illini, who are having to replace both of their backcourt pieces in Keaton Wagler and Kylan Boswell, and Stefan Vaaks might be the perfect fit for that system. Vaaks was a top 10 player out of the transfer portal, and the 6'7" guard is coming off a really strong season in the Big East, where he averaged 16 points per game and earned all Big East freshman team honors. And Vaaks just has tremendous offensive talent and great size and skill, and is a huge get for Brad Underwood in Illinois. But another commitment that was just made was Virginia Tech transferred Neoklis Avdalas, who is now committed to North Carolina. So Mike Malone gets his first ever transfer, and it's a huge one in Avdalas. The 6'9 freshman averaged 12 points and 4.5 assists per game this past season with the Hokies, but he has such a high ceiling with his combination of size and skill, being 6'9 and able to handle the ball, but he also showed the ability to score it, specifically in an early regular season game against Providence where he dropped 33 points on the Friars. And with the talent that Avdalas brings to North Carolina, he's going to be one of the key pieces for this Tar Heels lineup next season. And honestly, I'm expecting a breakout sophomore year for Avdalas. And another big name that is now off the board is Somto Cyril from Georgia, and the Bulldogs big man has announced that he is committed to the University of Miami. And this is huge for Jay Lucas and the Canes, as he is one of the top bigs that was available in the portal. The 6'11 sophomore led the SEC in blocks per game at nearly 2.5 last season and was all SEC defensive team. He averaged 9.5 points and 5.5 rebounds in only 21 minutes per game. And I truly believe Somto Cyril is going to be awesome at Miami and is going to be a monster in the ACC, because we know how good a coach Jay Lucas is after what we saw in his first season with Miami. And Miami also has a really good system for true bigs like Cyril, because we just saw Malik Renew and Ernest Uday both had really impressive seasons, and I truly think Somto Cyril could have an even better one. But I'm not going to lie, I was surprised a bit that Somto Cyril chose Miami, because he was also receiving interest from John Calipari and Arkansas, and that's where I thought he originally would go. But Jay Lucas and the Canes won this one, and Somto Cyril will be in a Miami uniform next season. And then another big commit was David Punch from TCU, who announced his commitment to Texas. And now the Longhorns have landed 2 of my top 10 players in the transfer portal. And last season, as a sophomore, Punch averaged 14 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 blocks per game for the Horned Frogs, while also earning all Big 12 honorable mention. And with Matas Vokatitis announcing that he'll be back for Texas next season as well, the Longhorns look like they might have one of the best front courts in the entire SEC. And Kansas was a team that was also mentioned in landing David Punch, but Texas was always seen as the front runner, and as we expected, that's where he's going to land. And overall, it's just a really strong weekend for Sean Miller and Texas, because they also landed a commitment from guard Isaiah Johnson there from Colorado, and they're starting to look like one of the better rosters in the country for next season. And another commitment was Texas Tech transfer guard Jaylen Petty, who announced he will be committing to Mick Cronin and UCLA for next season. And the 6'1 freshman averaged 10 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists per game this season with the Red Raiders, while shooting 37.5% from the three-point line. And Petty had a lot of really good moments for the Red Raiders as a freshman, and was set up to become the top option in the backcourt next year at Texas Tech. But instead, he'll be heading to UCLA, where I still think he could have a breakout sophomore year with the Bruins, and should help fill the hole that is left with Donovan Dent graduating. And although I'm not 100% on the fit of Jaylen Petty and UCLA, Mick Cronin still has already put together a really good offseason, and I'm interested to see what other moves he makes. But another guard that is now off the board for the transfer portal is Finley Bizjack out of Butler, because he announced his commitment to West Virginia earlier today. And Bizjack was one of the first players to announce that he was going to be entering the transfer portal, and he had a lot of buzz around him and was linked to teams like Kentucky, Ole Miss, Virginia, TCU, and USC, and that's because the 6'4 junior had a breakout season this past year at Butler, where he averaged 17 points per game and shot 35% from deep while earning all Big East third team honors, and he showed that he can really score the basketball and has a great handle as well. And now it looks like he's going to lead the West Virginia backcourt, and this was a big get for Ross Hodge and the Mountaineers. Another one of the first players to announce that they will be entering the transfer portal was Oregon forward Kwame Evans Jr., and he also announced where he's going to commit next season, and that's to Kevin Willard and the Villanova Wildcats. And this is a huge commitment for Villanova, because the 6'10 junior was a former 5-star recruit and had a really good season for Oregon this past year, although overall it was a disappointing year for the Ducks. Evans averaged 13 points and 7.5 rebounds this season, and he should bring some much needed size and athleticism to the Wildcats, and will be one of the better players in the Big East Conference next season. And there have been some other guys that Villanova has been linked to, but starting off with Kwame Evans Jr. is a really good pickup for Kevin Willard and Villanova. But we also got a pair of former Kentucky players committing to their new schools, and first up, it's Jaland Lowe, who announced that he will be playing at Georgetown next season. And Jaland Lowe is coming coming off a disappointing year with Kentucky due to injuries, and he entered the portal after just appearing in 9 games for the Wildcats this past season. But because of his limited play this year, I do think he's going to get a medical redshirt, which would give him an additional year of eligibility. And in those 9 games that he did play for Kentucky, Lowe averaged 8 points, 2 rebounds, and 2.5 assists, but his shooting percentages weren't the best, as he was just 36% from the floor and 21% from the three-point line. But I do believe if Lowe can get healthy and get back to the production that he had when he was at Pitt, he could be a really good pickup for Ed Cooley and Georgetown. And there with the Hoyas, he should have a big opportunity to thrive. And the other Kentucky player that announced where he will be committing to is Brandon Garrison, who will be heading to Tuscaloosa to join Nate Oates and the Alabama Crimson Tide next season. And with Alabama likely losing Aiden Sherrill in the transfer portal, Garrison was a big get for Nate Oates, and I do think he could have a really solid season in the Crimson Tide's up-tempo offensive scheme. This past season, the 6'10 forward averaged 5 points and 4 boards for the Wildcats, but that was in limited minutes because he was behind guys like Malika Marino there in the front court. And I do believe he is better than those numbers suggest, and he's going to have a lot more opportunities with Alabama. And with this pickup, Nate Oates and the Crimson Tide are adding some much-needed size and interior presence, and I think this could be good on both sides. But Alabama also lost someone in the transfer portal, and that's Jalil Bethea, who announced that he's going to be committing to Pitt, and he was just one of 3 pieces that Jeff Capel and the Pitt Panthers actually picked up over the past couple of days. And Bethea is a former 5-star recruit and McDonald's All-American who began his career at Miami before transferring to Alabama last offseason, and it seems that he just hasn't gotten the production or the minutes that he wanted to so far at Alabama or Miami. But I do like the fit of Bethea at Pitt because he stays in the Power 5 at a place that should provide him with a bigger opportunity, and with his upside, he could have a huge junior year with the Panthers. But the Panthers didn't stop there because they also got a commitment from North Carolina wing Jonathan Powell. And Powell has a similar story to Jalil Bethea, as he just didn't get the opportunity that he was looking for at North Carolina or at West Virginia the season before. And with the Tar Heels last season, Powell was a 36.5% three-point shooter who averaged 5 points and 2.5 rebounds. But I do believe he is an underrated target because in his limited minutes that we saw with North Carolina, he showcased that he's a super athletic wing and can really shoot the 3-ball and has a ton of potential, and is someone that I'm excited to see more minutes from. And then the last transfer that Pitt just got was Syracuse guard Nate George, who announced he will be committed to Jeff Capel and the Pitt Panthers as well. And last season, the 6'3 junior averaged 11 points, 3 rebounds, and 5.5 assists per game at Syracuse, and will now share the backcourt with Jalil Bethea there at Pitt. And I truly believe that backcourt could be dangerous with the upside that both of those players bring. And so far, I love all of these additions from Pitt, and it shaped up to be a great past couple of days in the transfer portal for Jeff Capel and the Panthers. But another commitment that just came out was Darren Harris, the Duke shooting guard, who announced that he will be committing to Darren DeVries and the Indiana Hoosiers. And this is a big pickup for Indiana because I do think Darren Harris has some untapped potential that we didn't see at Duke due to his limited opportunities. But Harris is known for being a great three-point shooter and could help a lot in the scoring department, especially with the departures of Lamar Wilkerson and Tucker DeVries there at Indiana. And Harris was also a former top recruit, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do with the bigger opportunity that he's going to get with the Hoosiers. But another top-rated recruit that announced where they will be committed to is Isaiah Harwell, the Houston guard, who announced that he will be committing to Gonzaga for his sophomore season. And previously in his recruitment out of high school, he was actually considering Gonzaga before choosing to go with Houston. But Harwell was a 5-star recruit and a McDonald's All-American in the 2025 class, and coming into college, he was a projected NBA draft pick, but due to some injuries and limited opportunities there at Houston, we didn't get to see what we were expecting from Harwell. But now he's moving to Mark Few and Gonzaga, where I think he's going to have a lot of opportunities and should be an impact two-way player for the Zags in the new Pac-12 conference, and is forming a trio of sophomores there at Gonzaga with Mario St. Superi and Davis Fogel. And this was a huge pickup at the wing position for Mark Few and the Zags. But one of the most underrated pickups, I think, was Tennessee just got a commitment from Loyola Chicago transfer Miles Rubin. And this is exactly what I was looking for from Tennessee. The 6'10 junior averaged 11.5 points, 7 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks per game this season to lead the Ramblers. and Ruben is a stud rim protector and one of the top defenders in the portal. And I mentioned earlier that I was a little concerned that Tennessee was going more on the offensive end in the transfer portal this cycle, but now I'm starting to love the mix that Rick Barnes and the Volunteers have put together, with Day-Day Ames and Tyler Lundblade being more offensive focused, and then Miles Rubin now coming in to solidify their defensive presence next season. And I'm interested to see if they're able to pick up a few more for this portal class. And another underrated transfer, I think, was Ryan Prather Jr. from Robert Morris, who announced his commitment to Iowa State, and now TJ Alzberger and the Cyclones have officially filled out their roster for the 2026-27 season. And Prather is another really good pickup from the Cyclones, as he averaged nearly 16 points and 3.5 assists per game this past season, and was second team All-Horizon while shooting nearly 37% from the three-point line. And this has been a stacked Iowa State transfer portal class, and it is now confirmed that all 5 of the Cyclone transfers that were on campus this weekend have committed, which is absolutely insane from TJ Alzberger and his staff. I just feel like every single guy that they added is just an Iowa State type of player, and it looks like they're going to compete once again at the top of the Big 12 next year. But that wraps it up for this one. Let me know in the comments down below which of these transfers do you think is going to have the biggest impact on their team next season. Also, if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.